they're sheltered. And then later in the winter, usually around here, I would say in February, the queen's going to start laying eggs. And in order for the eggs to incubate properly, the bees raise the temperature up to about 92 degrees at the center of that.
By shivering.
By shivering, yeah. So that's why they need honey. And around here, I generally try and leave about 75 to 80 pounds of honey in the hive for them to eat over the winter time. And then, of course, that means that anything they make that's more than that, I can take from them.
How do you know if it's when you actually measure it? Or how do you
Well, I mean, I feel, I
Oh.
pick up the hives. It's a little bit of a guessing game because, you know, obviously, if I harvest honey now, it's possible that we could just have the worst year ever, and maybe they wouldn't be able to make very much honey for the rest of the year. But I
Can you
mean,
inject, or do they have to have like their own?
you can feed them, and so that's what a lot of commercial producers do. So if I'm in the honey business on a large scale, I want to get all the honey I can from my bees, and then I'll feed them that corn syrup because they can consume corn syrup and they can live off it, and it's, you know, pound for pound, it's cheaper than honey. Yep, exactly.
Wow.
Of course, the problem being that bees are not made to eat high fructose corn syrup. They're made to eat honey, and so you know, it depends on who you ask, but certainly seems safe to say that it's not what they're meant to eat, and it's going to create problems for them, health
But
problems.
that could also
So
be one of the
basically,
factors contributing to their
Definitely can't help.
illness, right?
Yep.
Or you can just remove the better quality honey and just feed them like cheap, you know, like the really crappy honey, pretty much, right? Like
Some
still
beekeepers
honey.
do that. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. But in general, lighter colored honeys are worth more, and so if you know there are some crops like rape, which is the plant that they make canola oil from. It makes a very dark honey that most people that gets a lower price. And so if you know you're going to get a big crop of that, then you could do that. You could save it. You could either save it in the frames, or you could feed it back to the bees as a liquid, and they would store it. So let's see, what do we have going on here? There's one queen in each hive in general. Everything with bees, things can, you know, there are exceptions and things change, but in general, there's one queen. She's the only one that will lay eggs, and she'll.
She lays thousands of eggs, pretty much per.
Is she big right now?
Yeah, she has a longer abdomen. So the stripy part on all these bees, if you imagine it being, I don't know, about twice as long, and actually this queen is brown, or what they call cordovan.
You're like looking for her?
Yeah.
Wow.
My guess is that she's on the other
Where's
side.
that?
Oh,
yeah,
it's
queen.
both sides.
Yep.
So the other side looks exactly like that right now, just
Yep.
full of bees.
Oh, she might be over there.
Yeah.
I see.
And queens can lay about 1,500 to 2,000 eggs a day.
Wow.
And so that's what they do. I mean, even though we call her queen, like, she's not royalty. She doesn't make any decisions. She's just an egg-laying machine. She can't feed herself. She can't do anything except
She
lay
the only
eggs.
girl in here?
Nope. No. So all the almost all the other bees that you see here are workers, and they're females, but they're infertile. They actually can lay eggs, but the only eggs they can lay are for drones. Drones are male bees, and the interesting thing about them is that they only have one set of genes because they come from an unfertilized egg. And so
it's not an X
so
Y thing.
the queen bee, when she's laying eggs, she can actually control whether an egg is fertilized or not when she lays it. And the drones are laid. Drone eggs are laid in a slightly different cell. So when she comes to a cell and she's like, "Oh, this one's a little bit bigger. This is for a drone." She lays an unfertilized egg, and then she goes to the next cell. She says, "Oh, this is a normal size one. This is for a worker bee."
Now,
And
what
she
do
lays
drones
a
do?
fertilized egg. They mate and they hang out. They,
Go drones.
It sounds pretty good. The drones don't feed themselves. They ask worker bees for food.
Nice.
They generally just hang out in the hive all summer long. They'll occasionally go out on mating flights. But then in the fall, you know, queens don't need to be mated in the fall. You can't fly when it's cold outside, and the colony of bees knows this. So, come September, October, they chase all the drones out, and they die in the cold. It's kind of sad. You can come by the hives and watch them, and there's those little drones saying, "No, we're back in! No!" And the worker bees like, "Come on, get out of here. Your time's over,
What
buddy."
are drones are the guys?
Drones are the guys, and
Oh, poor guys.
yeah, it's a little sad.
Oh,
but-
good
Now,
one.
Can
does the
queen lay
queen
an egg
live fast,
like
die
a
young?
hen?
Yeah, so the difference between an egg that becomes a queen and an egg that becomes a worker is just the way that it's raised, because they both come from fertilized eggs, and the queen, if the workers decide that they're going to raise a queen from an egg, then they will provide, the egg hatches, becomes a little larva, and the workers will give it an unlimited amount of food.
Larva.
And they'll give it a slightly different kind of food, and that it develops into a worker bee. It actually, the queen bee develops in 18 days from when the egg's laid to when the bee emerges. The worker bees take 21 days. They take 3 more days. But developing workers get fed little bit by little bit. There's no food in the cell with them. The little larva is just in there waiting around, and when they call them a nurse bee, a bee that's working inside, comes up, she'll feed just a little bit, just a bite of food, and then move on. And it's, there's another interesting thing. Even though we know how that works, nobody really knows exactly what it is that makes a queen bee turn into a queen bee. So, which is, say, you couldn't take an egg and in laboratory conditions turn it into a queen. You can take an egg out here and put it in a colony that doesn't have a queen, and the worker bees will all say, "Oh no, we don't have a queen. We need to raise one," and they'll raise it up as a queen for you, which is,
Wow.
Many beekeepers do that, raise queens.
That's
It's
incredible.
relatively straightforward, but it's still not, exactly what compound it is in the food that makes a queen. Nobody really knows. Fascinating thing about bees. There's all this knowledge about it, and people have written more books about bees and studied them more than any other critter, but there's still a lot of unknowns.
Now, what makes the difference, like in honey? Like one is, you see a lot of sugar in it, and it's really thick and dense, and other is kind of clear and it's more like liquid. Like, what is that? Like, what's the difference there?
The big differences between honey are just the source of the flowers.
Uh-huh.
And so when you go to a store and it says, you can buy orange blossom honey, or actually somebody gave me a jar of coffee blossom honey. But anytime you put a hive of bees in an area where there are a whole lot of any one kind of flower,
Right.
they will make that kind of honey. So clover honey obviously comes from clover.
Right.
And every flower has a little bit different kind of a honey that it produces. So like one tree that's about to bloom around here now is the tulip poplar. Tulip honey is very light and sweet, and it doesn't crystallize like you're talking
Okay.
about. Some honey, like goldenrod, that sort of weed that has the little yellow flowers and it grows on roadsides in the fall. That produces a very dark honey that crystallizes. Sometimes you can't even extract it because it'll crystallize in the
So
cell.
hard. Yeah.
But all honeys are the same in that the honey will last pretty much forever, and this is why bees have developed it, because honey has less than 18% water content, and because of that, it actually kills bacteria. That's why you can take a jar of honey and you can put it on your shelf and you can come back in 5 years and open it up and it'll still be just as good. It may crystallize, which you can heat it up and it'll it'll fall back into solution, but it doesn't go bad. And in fact, the United States has just approved a medical honey for use on the methicillin-resistant Staphylococcus aureus. It's a antibacterial resistant staph infection that a lot of people get, especially if they're staying in hospitals. Like if you have surgery in the hospital, you'll get this MRSA. You can treat it with honey because the water content in honey is so low that when a bacteria is covered in honey, the cell wall will actually burst. So it's a mechanical control of bacteria. And scientists say that bacteria probably can't develop resistance to it. Because
there's
it's,
no
because
water.
it's purely mechanical. It's like saying that cockroaches will become resistant to getting squashed.
Right.
Like, it's possible that someday there will be, super cockroaches that you just can't squash, but, the chances of that are pretty slim.
I've seen a couple.
What about, so are the health properties of
Every
eating
cup
honey?
passes by as a
Um,
priest.
Yeah,
Another
it's
color.
it's-
That's like shit.
Well, I mean, the one thing that's, that is good about honey, at least as a sweetener, is that it's a mix of fructose and glucose, which are, fructose is the sugar that's found in most fruits, and glucose is the sugar that's found in grapes. So that they're more natural sugars than eating sucrose. And I know a lot of diabetics keep honey around because those are simple sugars. They're much more easily accessible.
I have a diabetic dog. We actually have.
Why are you laughing
actually
at the
have-
poor dog?
I can't remember if it's maple syrup. No, it's not maple syrup. It's molasses.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
We have molasses in a little thing in my house, and she's gone into diabetic shock before, so we just rub it on her gums.
Mhm. Yep. And